We also, a long-term vision is to develop what's called an high-altitude pseudo-satellite system. These are perpetual flying drones that are typically 30 kilometers from the Earth's surface, and they have continuous observation of the area of interest. Typically, they fly for months altogether. Um, and through the next fundraise, we're hoping that we develop a demonstrator for it and showcase that technology. And that opens up a lot more use cases which are currently not available. It enables the acquisition of data that are not enabled by current technology. So a new class of data, aerial data, is now being acquired from these systems.
Hi, wherever you're joining us, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to Startup Fridays, conversations with accomplished entrepreneurs and VC investors. I'm Hari Arakli, and in this episode, Parithi Govindaraju, founder and CEO of Okulo Aerospace, gives us a quick update on the solar-electric hybrid long-endurance drones he and his team are developing for what he describes as persistent monitoring. In this conversation, Parithi talks about the importance of such long-endurance UAVs for protecting India's strategic assets, both civilian and military. He also touches upon his experience so far in building a deep tech company out of India. So, Parithi, thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Arya, for having me here. Wonderful to talk to you and share my experience so far.
Give us a snapshot background of how you came to start Okulo, and we'll go from there.
So, I'm an aerospace engineer by education and profession. But even prior to that, as I was growing up, my interest started in astronomy and space, as most young kids do. And gradually, my interest turned towards anything that flies. So, shifted towards aeronautical systems, aerial flying systems, and so on. So I felt that was my calling, and started working on projects, side projects, even when I was in my 10th and 12th grade. Right? So this area deeply fascinated me, and I felt I could do something valuable in that space. So even while I was doing mechanical engineering, my interest always catered around anything aeronautical. So all my side projects, summer projects, winter projects was in aeronautical systems. After I finished my undergraduate, I felt to really make a difference in this field, I need to understand it further. And I felt that doing my graduate studies would be the best option to gain this knowledge. And the US was the best place to understand and learn about aerospace systems, given its long history. So I went to Purdue University to do my master's in aerospace engineering. I liked working with my advisor, Mr. Professor William Crossley, was working on aircraft design and next generation aircraft systems. And I stayed back for my PhD. So I did study at Purdue for about 6 years. During that time, worked on a lot of projects with esteemed clients like NASA, the US Air Force, the FAA, and gradually got an understanding of how next generation aircraft systems were being built. Even before I went to the US, there was always inkling to start my own company. That was sort of in there, maybe germinated a little bit, but sort of got solidified as I was going through my graduate studies. That the best impact I could have is to start a company and build these kind of systems, preferably out of India, given that I'm an Indian, a little bit of nationalistic pride to start an aerospace company in India and develop these systems. So, studied for about 6 years at Purdue, learned a lot about how research is done from an academia perspective, and then decided to go work in the industry for a few years to gain a little more experience in this. I actually left the US, went to Europe, and worked for what was then called United Technologies, now Raytheon Technologies, the largest aerospace supplier. So worked with the research labs for about a couple of years, looking into next generation electric systems at a time scale of 2030 and beyond. So after a couple of years, I felt that I had the research knowledge from an academia perspective. Also, with a couple of years of work experience, I felt I understood how industry was looking at the next generation of systems, and I felt that I had the knowledge to start building some of these systems with the background. So I quit my job in 2018 and decided to come back to India and start.
Before Okulo, did you experiment with anything? Any other startup ideas?
Uh, no, not really.
Okay.
So, I mean, of course, there were a slew of ideas that we were iterating on before finalizing on what we are working right now.
Right.
But given my background was in aeronautical system, it was always to do with anything that flies. Right.
Right.
The ideas were always centered around anything that flies. But we were trying to address a potential customer problem. So that is something my early mentors and advisors and my understanding of the entrepreneurship ecosystem told me: build a product that the customer wants rather than build a product that you like.
Right.
So since that learning was there, we before we even started building anything at Okulo, we actually did a lot of customer development efforts.
And did you have any co-founders, since you said we?
Yes. So at that point, Okulo Aerospace was founded by myself and Abhishek Akash, we were co-founders then. But about a year after its founding, we had to part ways because we felt that the timeline and the risk associated with it was not aligned with for both of us. And I decided to continue the journey while Abhishek decided to part ways and continue his.
Did Abhishek go back to the industry or try to start some other company?
No, he's gone back to the industry.
Okay.
And he's working right now.
Yeah, I mean, especially out of India. I mean, that's a simple example of how tough things can become, right?
Yes. So one of the learnings for any deep tech founder, what I would recommend is having the ability to be patient for a reasonable amount of time and having a support structure, family that can support you during these sort of a roller coaster ride, for lack of a better word. That is very essential for a deep tech founder because at times you may not know where this is leading to, and opportunities may not be in the vicinity, but you'll have to ride through that wave and still have a lot of conviction in what you're building. And that, I think, is essential for any deep tech founder. May not be true for all founders because the feedback loop for the kind of products that they build is much faster, whereas the feedback loop for a deep tech or a hard tech founder is going to be years, right? Like by the time you start building a product and it comes to commercialization, it's a few years. So during these periods, there'll be tough decisions to make. There'll be lows, of course, highs along the way as well. But that support system, if it is there, will help you in a long way.
Okay, so walk me through how the germ of an idea you had that you thought could become a marketable or viable commercial product in the field of aerospace. What was that idea, and how did that crystallize into what Okulo is today?
Okay. So the hypothesis was basically, can we improve the flight time of drones in an economically viable manner that could add value to a customer? From our interactions with various customers who had started looking at drone as a possible solution to their problems, often when we interact with them, they said, hey, drones are great, they help me do certain things, but they can only fly for a few hours or a few minutes, right? And because of that, we are not able to leverage its full capability and potential. And this was a common sort of anecdote that we heard in multiple sectors, ranging from oil and gas, ports, mines, and even the defense. Of course, the defense needs aerial systems for monitoring critical assets and areas. So when we heard this sort of common anecdote, we realized that, okay, flight time needs to be improved, but at what price point and for what kind of customers? And we looked at various technology options ranging from fuel-based drones, pure electric drones, hydrogen-based drones, and even solar electric drones that we are currently building today. So when we did our calculations and economic viability of any solution and the maturity levels of that solution also, we zeroed in on solar electric to be the best option. And that's what we are building currently today at Okulo. So we went through almost a year of customer development before we started building the product at Okulo.
When did you formally found Okulo?
2019.
Okay.
Actually, today is our 5th-year anniversary. So
Very
fortuitous
nice.
that we are having this discussion today. So it's exactly 5 years as of today.
Okay. Can you take a step back and tell us about, basically, give us a layperson's understanding of why it's important to have drones staying up in air? I mean, it might seem obvious that if it stays up in air longer, it can probably continue to send useful information
Yes.
longer. But I mean, from your sort of scientist slash engineer's point of view, give us a sense of what is the significance.
Understood. So, when you have aerial systems that can stay up in the air for limited period of time, the kind of use cases that it caters to is where decision making is in the order of weeks or months. Uh, when you want to make decisions in the order of minutes or using real time information, that's when you want aerial systems that can fly for longer periods of time. So, surveillance is an obvious use case where you want to know what's happening on the ground at all periods of time. And an aerial vantage point view would cover a larger area than as opposed to ground-based monitoring systems. So wherever you feel the decision making is on a shorter time scales, a longer flying aerial system is the need of the hour. Or the other use case could be where you have systems assets spread over large areas and you want to monitor them periodically, and having ground-based systems or other human-based systems may not be the best bet. You want something that goes to a particular area of interest, captures the information, relays in the information, so that the decision makers can then act on it. Could be for security reasons, could be for monitoring reasons, could be for operational reasons. So that's where a longer flying aerial system or long endurance aerial system is required. The other aspect from a consumer or a customer point of view is that it reduces the cost of data acquisition. A longer a system is able to fly and capture data, the total cost of solution decreases considerably, because you either use lesser number of drones because you stay in the air, or you also in concurrence use lesser number of personnel to get the job done. So because of these two combinations, the cost of the total solution and the capability to arrive at that capability is reduced, and this benefit we pass on to the customer. Those are the main reasons why a customer would want to have a long endurance based solution, and we're enabling a new set of use cases that current drones cannot do at the moment.
And with solar electric, actually, let me get back to that part a little later. Walk me through what has happened so far. 2019, you started the company, and I would imagine this is a pretty sophisticated product. So, product development would have taken a fair amount of time. Where are you at today?
So, from 2019, as I alluded to before, the first year we spent mostly on customer development. We talked to various customers in different enterprise sectors, oil and gas, ports, mining predominantly. And we also spent our efforts in talking to defense forces, the Indian Army, the Navy, and the Air Force, trying to understand if the problem is an industry-wide problem or it's isolated to a few sectors. So once we had that conviction that it is applicable to many sectors, we started product development in about early 2020. Because of COVID and other reasons, our product development got delayed for a few months. In 2022, we were able to demonstrate what we were claiming as a long endurance solution. So we did flights where our drones could fly for 6 to 6.5 hours in comparison to drones of similar class which could fly only for about 2 hours. So we were able to demonstrate it by 2022. And now we are sort of ruggedizing that solution to an industry grade, and we've reached TRL 8, which is about to get ready for certification and commercial deployment. So the product is now mature. We have done a few pilots with customers. We are about to submit for certification and ready for deployment. So we've taken about 3.5 years of R&D. The engineering of it is a challenge because integration of solar cells on an airframe to make it really useful is the hard part. While putting solar cells on any drone is not a hard thing. Making it actually useful in terms of improving the endurance is the engineering challenge that we have overcome. So we have reached TRL 8 and ready for deployment on our first variant of the drone. Simultaneously, in 2021, we were one of the winners of the IDEX challenge, where we proposed the development of a long endurance drone solution for the Indian Army, specifically for the border surveillance activities in the north and northeast. So this is one of a kind product, perhaps in the world, where we have a electric drone solution that operates at altitudes of 7,000 meters, which is in the Himalaya, Siachen region. There are no such drone solutions from an electric propulsion perspective as of now. And we are developing this solution. That is currently at about TRL 5, where we have developed a prototype that did some functional testing, and we are improving the design to meet the requirements. So those are two product lines that we currently have built so far.
You spoke about looking at different options of fueling the drone. Tell us a bit more about how and why you decided eventually on solar electric.
Sure. So the most common way drones were propelled before was using some sort of fuel, liquid fuel, right? And while it did give the endurance, the maintenance cost and the subsequent operational cost was considerable. So it was not suitable for periodic monitoring use cases. And the era of IC engines and fuel-based propulsion was over. The world was going electric because of the obvious advantages of easier integration, where maintenance and operation costs are considerably lower, and the ability to sort of daisy chain and scale up multiple electric propulsion units was easier. So we sort of understood fuel is not going to be part of the future except for in isolated use cases. So we quickly ruled that out. The other option was fuel electric hybridization, where you had a liquid fuel based propulsion in combination with batteries and electric motors. When we did the math on the economics, it didn't make sense. While it still solved for the problem in a capability perspective, it didn't make economic sense. So that was the other reason we ruled that out. Hydrogen aviation was promising, but the tech back in 2019 at least, the technology wasn't mature. All the subsystems had to be imported. The supply chain for those sort of subsystems was not available within India. So building an hydrogen aviation-based solution in India in 2019 was very challenging. Even now it is challenging, but it has improved considerably. So, and the economics of having a hydrogen-based solution also didn't make sense for a lot of the customers when we proposed, hey, this could be the cost of the overall solution. See, so the choice is sort of narrowed down to either a pure electric-based solution or a solar electric-based solution. Since I have been working on aircraft design for the last 15 years, I understood how to build solar electric, and the increase in cost because of this hybridization was only about 25%. So compared to a similar drone, which is pure electric, we are about only 25% costlier on a drone basis, but we are able to give them 4x the endurance. So a similar drone without solar, even our drone, if you switch off the solar energy harvesting part, we fly for about 2 hours. With solar, we are able to get about 8 hours for just a 25% increase in cost. So that was mainly because we got the design right. A lot of iterations, a lot of computational algorithmic development to look at these designs before we go into prototype. So the USP, I would say, of the company is actually these computational methodologies and rapid iterations of design that we could go through before we actually prototype and build the final product. That is something that we have developed internally over the last 4 to 5 years. So electric or solar electric, since we are able to give enhanced capabilities at a fraction of increase in cost, we finally settled on solar electric as the choice. However, as in the future, our core capabilities is to develop aerial systems given a specific set of requirements. And we could develop other systems in the future, but our focus currently is on developing solar electric systems for the use cases that we have identified where there's a good return on investment.
So, in simple terms, pure electric means when the charge is running low, you bring it down, you charge it on the ground, and then you can use it again. Whereas in your case, that is one of the important innovations that you're developing, where even as it's flying,
Yes.
it can continue to, be charged
Yes.
using the solar panels. So the solar panels, do they need to be of very high quality, like space grade and things like that?
Doesn't need to be space qualified because we don't operate in space as of now.
In terms of efficiency of the panels?
Yes, it is of a slightly higher efficiency than the one that you typically see on rooftops and in solar parks. Right? So it's of a particular class of solar cells that are flexible so that it sort of adheres to the shape of the drone. And currently, we don't have any manufacturers of that particular kind of solar cells that we use, and we actually import them. They are of a slightly higher efficiency, typically 20 to 22%, whereas rooftop solar cells are typically between 13 to 16%. So slightly higher efficiency. However, if the solar cell technology evolves, we can just adopt them. For us, it's a plug and play system. We know how to integrate the solar cells onto our airframe, and depending on the efficiency, how do we change other systems? So that knowledge and know-how has been gained over years of R&D. But currently, we have to import these systems, solar cells, because there aren't any such manufacturers, and it's a niche solution as of now.
So explain to us what are some of the main things which are very proprietary to Okulo in this product or these two products?
So one is the entire design of the drone. So just putting solar cells on any drone would not give you the kind of endurance boost that we are able to get. So if a similar looking drone and you put solar cells on them and try to improve its endurance, you might get anything between a 20 to 30% increase in endurance. Whereas if the drone is designed from the ground up and every subsystem is chosen accordingly, then you have the 3x or 4x improvement in endurance like we have got. So the entire design has been optimized in several respects, including the weight, the aerodynamics, the choice of the motor and propulsion and other systems, which is proprietary to us. The energy management system, which allows for integration of solar energy and the batteries, is proprietary to us. And we've improved on the space utilization within the drone so that we tightly pack all the components, utilizing as much, whatever space is available, so that we keep the overall footprint and weight low. So these are the three major innovations that we have brought in. We have filed for a couple of patents we have been granted one patent as of now. The second patent is being reviewed as we speak.
Give us some basic specs. How big is this drone? How much does it weigh? Okay. Who can operate it, and how easy is it to operate? Sure. Some of I would imagine the materials today are pretty standard.
So our enterprise drone is roughly about 3 meters wide, which is the wingspan of the drone, and 2 meters in length. Weighs about 6 kgs. So thus it could be hand launched by a single operator. So it's not too heavy where you need multiple people to carry it and deploy it. And once it is hand launched, the drone can fly autonomously and carry out its data acquisition activities. So we develop what's called autonomous drones. Of course, it can be flown manually also if the need arises. But the primary way we intended to operate it is an autonomous fashion. So we pre-program the flight paths and ask the drone to follow it, and it does follow. And when it comes to land, we just sort of belly land and that doesn't affect the structure to that extent. So it's about 6 kgs in weight, 3-meter wide wingspan, and carries useful payloads of up to 1 kg in this specific drone. So we carry day and night cameras. We could carry multispectral cameras. We can carry LiDARs. So it's a sensor agnostic drone that can carry payloads up to 1 kg and get endurance and flight times of up to 6 to 8 hours, depending on weather conditions. In the defense drone, we have a much larger drone, which is about 4.5 meters wide and carries a larger sensor payload of up to 3.5 kgs. Since it is intended to operate in altitudes of 7,000 meters, there are certain changes, and the total weight of the drone is about 28 to 30 kgs. So it's a much larger drone, but the advantage we have is we can disassemble it, and it can be carried by 3 personnel in the defense forces. So it's shoulder portable, man portable in that respect. But that is primarily for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance use cases by the defense. Much larger drone, about 4.5 meters wide.
So you've designed it to look like miniature aircraft rather than the normal drones that people know today, that squarish with multiple fans and things like that. So this has one rotor.
This has the enterprise drone has just one motor and propeller or a rotor, and looks like a regular aircraft. Right? It's just a miniature version of it. So these are what's called fixed wing drones, where similar to a passenger aircraft in terms of its configuration. The defense drone is what's called a VTOL drone, vertical takeoff and landing drone. So there are certain rotors that help in vertical takeoff and landing, and a specific single rotor that helps in forward flight. So these are 2 variants that we currently have. Of course, we have the ability to build multi-copters or these multiple rotor drones, but we believe our USP and our ability to impact the development of this is more on the fixed wing and VTOL systems that we're building.
I'm just trying to visualize the VTOL system. How many fans do you have? Do you have one sort of centralized thing which pushes it up? Or you have 2 like on the wings and the common things that we have seen on the internet?
It's what's called a lift cruise configuration. So we have
Same thing
so we have 4 rotors that are used for vertical takeoff and landing, similar to how a multi-copter is. And then we have 1 dedicated rotor that's for forward propulsion and forward flight. So there are 5 rotors in total, 4 for vertical takeoff and landing, and 1 for any sort of forward flight, regular flight. So that's the configuration. Of course, in our R&D, we have looked at various other configurations. There are tricopters, tilt rotors, where the forward propulsion motor itself tilts for vertical takeoff and landing. So you reduce the number of motors and propellers you need. But there are other trade-offs for that kind of configuration. We've looked at that in our R&D, and we still develop some of these systems, but they are still in development and not mature yet to make it.
I want to get back to the software side of things a bit more, but I thought we can switch to talking about the commercial aspects a little bit more. Who are your potential customers? Of course, on the defense side, I get that those are governments and so on. On the civilian/commercial side of things, for that product, what kind of customers are you looking at?
So primary target markets are any industry which owns widespread assets and which require periodic monitoring. So the obvious candidates are companies like oil and gas, which own pipelines across the length and breadth of the country. Any solar parks which have multiple thousands of acres of solar panels that need to be monitored. Mines which need to secure the areas for any sort of blast and frequent monitoring. And ports which are typically in a few square kilometers that need to be monitored for security reasons. So these are the civilian sectors that we are targeting right now. Oil. So the most obvious use case and the most promising use case for us is monitoring of oil and gas pipelines. India has about 45,000 kilometers of pipelines that need to be monitored almost on a daily basis, mandated by law. So currently they use very age-old techniques like foot patrol, where a person walks along the pipeline, makes sure that everything is okay, and reports at the end of the day. Obviously, this is not scalable. A lot of human elements are there. Subjectivity comes into the picture. There's no evidence to back some of these claims. And we believe an aerial-based solution could be better and also more affordable compared to current solutions. That's the kind of target markets that we're looking on the enterprise side. So we are developing what's called dual use technology. So can be equally applicable to the defense as well. And the variant of an enterprise drone could be used in law enforcement, emergency response, and also for policing activities, if crime related activities, if the need arises. But currently our focus is on these enterprise sectors before we go to these adjacent sectors and diversify. That's why.
And this is the product line that you said is already at TRL level 8.
Yes.
So how far away are you realistically from your first contract for drones?
We've already done few pilots with customers in these segments. We're about to submit our drone for certification, and we anticipate our first customers to come within the next few months, where we actually go into revenue contracts. So the enterprise drone is ready for commercialization, except I anticipate the next few months, once we get our drone certified, we already have prospective customers who want to utilize the product. Certification is the next step for us before we get into commercialization, which we anticipate to happen within the next 2 to 3 months. And post that, we will commercialize our enterprise drone. The defense drone is still, I would say, about 6 to 8 months away from getting to field trials. And once field trials happen with the end user, which in our case is the Indian Army, then we can get into deployment and first use from the end user. That is still about a year away for us.
How do you plan on manufacturing these?
So we have manufacturing partners who, once our design is frozen and we have done some prototype testing, we pass on the design to our manufacturing partners so that they can manufacture the airframe, the structural components of it, and then we integrate it in-house. That's how we have planned to scale up as the demand for these activities grow. But we have an ability to prototype our drones in-house so that we can rapidly have that feedback loop of designing it computationally, testing the drone, getting the performance system data, and improving the design. That we have the ability in-house. But mass scale manufacturing, at the moment, we believe having a contract manufacturing partner is the best way forward. And we have identified some partners who could do this for us.
You have such folks in India, or do you have to send it to China or other places?
No. From a structural manufacturing standpoint, that capability is already present in India, especially in Bangalore, where a lot of aerospace structural development has happened over the years. That ability currently exists in India, and it caters to our needs. The only thing we have to depend on a foreign country is for battery imports in certain cases, and as I mentioned earlier, the solar cell and a few niche electronics that might be required on a drone. So I would say about 20% of our drone's cost is through import items. The rest of the 80% is sourced from Indian vendors and the Indian ecosystem.
So the batteries are lithium-ion batteries, are they?
Yes, the enterprise drone uses lithium-ion. We are also experimenting with a few other chemistries to see which one works best. But currently, we use lithium-ion batteries.
And these are requirements that are not yet, at a point where it can be fulfilled by like maybe a company like Log9 or
Yeah. So Log9 could be a potential vendor for us, but currently they don't make in the form factor that
that you want.
we would want.
Yeah.
So we had to work with other vendors who could satisfy these requirements. But in the future, I presume the Indian ecosystem would be able to satisfy our needs. Log9 could be one such vendor for us in the future.
And on the electronic side, you said some niche. I'm thinking these are semiconductor systems on chip that
Yes.
currently don't exist. So the type of the RISC-V systems on chips that people are just beginning to make in India, companies like Incore and Mindgrove. At some point, would those be relevant to you?
Could be, but developing semiconductor and chip-based systems is a long development timeline. So in our design and development, all these systems are plug-and-play systems. So if an equivalent Indian vendor is able to develop these systems and it's compatible with our other systems that we have, happy to replace
Switch to
them. We in our development methodology, we always wanted to do it in a modular fashion so that we are not restricted to a particular vendor or type of subsystem, and because that would delay us in other development. So we have taken that robust approach where if an equivalent product or subsystem becomes available, we are able to just switch it out and still move on. So that methodology has its pros and cons, but it gives you as robustness and resilience that we are not tied down to a single vendor or a single type of technology. And that's the approach we have taken in building up these products.
Yeah, no, the reason, of course, I'm sure you've guessed the reason, which is I'm just trying to get a sense of sort of the broader, the so-called umbrella deep tech ecosystem in India and how that's developing. So would you agree that you're maybe 5 years away from many of these subsystems becoming available in India, or will it take you longer?
On the motors and propulsion side, I think already there are a few companies that are making them in India, and some of them meet our requirements. And we will probably, even in the next version of our drones, we could swap them out for Indian subsystems. On the semiconductor side, to be very frank, I would still say it's 5 years and more, if not. But in other subsystems, less than 5 years for sure. Except for the semiconductors, every other part of our drone supply chain could be purely obtained from Indian vendors in the next 5 years. Semiconductors, there are enough data points at this moment to say that it could be possible within the next 5 years. I would put it at a 7 to 10 year timeline as of now. But things are changing rapidly on the semiconductor space as well. So I'm happy to be proven wrong in that.
And what do these SOCs do specifically? I mean, for the navigation of drones, for avionics?
Yes.
What are the...
So there is one specific SOC called the flight control computer, which determines the control of the drone, how much energy should be sent to various control systems, the motors, the propulsion, and also decides on the flight path, getting the data from various sensors and determining how the drone operates. So that's the major flight control computer. Then there are additional compute boards which does analytics, edge computing on the drone. These are two major chips that we have. There are small SOCs like GPS chips and so on, the sensor-based. If any imaging system is placed on the drone, then it has an associated SOC that comes from the OEM itself. But the larger SOCs are the flight control computers and the companion computer boards that we have.
So these are relatively low volume but high value components, right? For which the ecosystem in India is virtually absent.
Virtually absent as of now. But as we see increasing adoption of drone or these sort of high-end niche products, there's a there's a business opportunity there for someone to come and make these chips because the customer wants it. There's someone to build and integrate these products. Uh, and if somebody could make them in meeting the performance requirements and at an appropriate price point, there's business to be made. Of course, we don't have the background to do that ourselves, so I'm sure there are other experts who could sense this opportunity and make use of it.
Tell us a bit about some of your business projections based on your conversations with customers and so on.
So so one thing that is different from in the kind of use cases that we are targeting is there is predictable demand in the drone operations, right? That was a strategic reason why we targeted these use cases. So the current wave of drone use is what's called VLOS, visual line of sight operations, and ad hoc drone demand, which is in mapping and surveying. Right? Someone comes and says, "Hey, I want to survey this entire parcel of land and get the data for whatever decisions they have to make." So once you have done a survey or mapping of a particular area, the frequency of repeat orders is going to be limited. Right? Survey happens once in 5 years, once in 6 years, or so on for the same parcel of land. So we felt while we might get immediate revenue there, it's not a sustainable business case. So we targeted use cases where there's a high frequency of aerial imagery and aerial data acquisition, and which is in surveillance and repeated monitoring use cases. So currently we are as I said, we have done some paid pilot projects, and we're currently pre-revenue as of today. But we anticipate within the first year to get about $1 million in revenue at least, because some of these contracts that we might end up winning are multiple year contracts, repeated drone operations. So there's these are high ticket sales if they when they do happen. Unlike mapping and surveying use cases where you do get a few thousands and maybe a few lakhs in each order. So these contracts are typically multi-crore orders, and we anticipate at least $1 million in our first year. And as we sort of prove that our systems can enable these new use cases, we believe that the adoption would be increasing further. In the oil and gas space, we believe that the oil and gas pipeline monitoring use case is very strongly suited for the systems that we build, and these contracts typically are 5 to 10 crores depending on the length of the pipeline that needs to be monitored. So first year we anticipate about $1 million. Within the first 3 years, we are looking at anywhere between 10 to 12 million ARR within an Indian geographical landscape. Post that, I think we have enough data points and evidence to say that we would attain product market fit, and we would like to expand to other geographical areas, preferably the Middle East and also the US, which is still one of the largest customer base for the kind of solutions that we are developing. Of course, it doesn't mean that we exit the Indian market. We will still operate in the Indian market, but we want to be known as the best aerial data acquisition provider from drone acquisition perspective. And we are not going to limit ourselves to the Indian geography. We will make it in India for the world, and we also want to show that such systems could be made out of India, and the next way of deep tech, hard tech products that the world could use could arise out of India, and we want to demonstrate that in some way.
And the business model is about selling the drones, or is there also a recurring revenue aspect to it?
Yes. So in the enterprise sector, we offer insights as a service. So we operate the drones, we collect the data, we run analytics and processing of the data, and we deliver the insights to the customer. Currently, we have partnered with a few companies who develop the software and the analytics side of it. We also have in-house capabilities that will get improved as we go forward. But we will provide an end-to-end solution from a customer perspective, where the entire drone data acquisition, the processing, and the final insights are provided through us. And that is on a service-based business model, and this will be monthly recurring revenue. In the defense sector, uh, the current modus operandi that the end user wants is direct sales of products. So we will develop these systems, field test them, go through any tendering process that might be there, and we'll sell the products directly to uh,